Good evening, America. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it.
I do want to give some reaction to it here, Jordan, as we kind of go through this. It was a different tone than we'd heard in kind of a presidential address from the president in that format. Almost had more of a rally style without an audience.
Right.
But here are some of the headlines I picked. I just picked a few just because I thought you'd enjoy them. Top Democrats rip Trump address, untethered from reality and truth. Then MS Now had the top 10 most brazen lies from Trump's year-end primetime address. In 18 minutes, they found the top 10. I mean, it's kind of should cover the whole speech at that point. I think there weren't more than 10 points he made if you're going to try to do that. But then we had the president. This is from CNN. The president fixated on Joe Biden in a rushed speech that didn't sell a compelling economic message. I also want to bring this up.
That's my first point. Usually the media, that's because they want him to speak for an hour and a half. Why? Their ratings go up because people would rather watch him than most of their hosts. And so usually they're talking about, it's long-winded, it's all over the place. So when it's actually direct, I do think he gave it in like a very tough tone. But when it's direct and to the point, it's like, oh, what's this? We only got 18 minutes. Now we got to rush to cover now our full show. We didn't just get to rely on President Trump covering 1.5 of our news broadcast shows that aren't doing so well at night. And so I think that's point one. Point two, the idea that it's lies. You can't lie about inflation. So inflation going down from 9 to 2.7%. You can't lie about saying that military bonuses are going out because of the tariffs of $1,776. Again, going to that 250th anniversary of the United States. And then a lot of this is talking about, and this is where you have to be more speculative because we've got the big, beautiful bill going now into full effect into 2026. That is when ordinary citizens, not just government agencies, but the people are supposed to get the positive effects. You can't say that's not true until you've allowed it to go into effect. So you allow it to go into effect, and then you can judge it from there. I think what's happening is prejudging and saying, this can't be true and that can't be true. That's not completely accurate. And if that is correct, it could balance the healthcare issue. Because if people have more money and if their mortgage rates do go down, the interest rates there go down, especially on mortgages, then if you don't have that extra COVID era by Obamacare funding, well, if you're paying a lot less for your home in a year or this upcoming year, you're able to then cover what may be for some people. Some of these costs I was hearing, it's $50 more a month, $100 more a month. And on the higher end earners, $1,000 more a month. Well, if their mortgage payment goes down by a percentage point or two, that should be able to balance out.
That's right. And once again, I thought it was comical.
Net bonus.
Because CNN called it in one article a speech about nothing.
Right. But they have 10.
But then they also fact-checked a speech about nothing. What's there to fact-check if it was indeed about nothing?
I mean, their own headlines, we always go to this, their own headlines contradict themselves. They have fact-checkers saying that there's all these lies, and then their bigger headline is it was a nothing speech. Well, if it was a nothing speech, why do you have fact checkers taking it, and why is it covering all of your homepage? And I think what it was they saw 18 minutes. It was 18 minutes. It was not what they were expecting. It wasn't It wasn't going off teleprompter. It wasn't going off message. It stuck to the economy. And I think what they wanted was more Venezuela talk and more talk like that. And as I want to remind people, and I don't think the administration is not trying to play this with China as directly as I can say, but we know that China, under the Biden administration, under the Obama administration as well, and Trump had only 4 years the first time, so you can only get so much out when you're talking about the military and the other things we needed to deal with. They were starting to dominate the Caribbean. That is not good for the United States of America. That's our backyard. So when you start taking out these drug vessels and saying, we're going to stop this fentanyl and this cartel government in Venezuela from getting to our borders, that also makes the Caribbean a little bit less of a free, open and free for the Chinese to not only build for their economic ports, but when they build ports, they're economic / military. That always comes together. And so we need that presence in the Caribbean to let them know that our warships are going to be there.
Well, and Jordan, I think it was interesting because that became kind of a theme before the speech was given. Yeah. Meanwhile, Caroline Leavitt, as well as Scott Bessent, had both during the day yesterday previewed what was coming. They said this is about the agenda for affordability. President Trump mentioned that they will be unveiling a plan for affordable housing next year. So that was what the White House and the Treasury Secretary were telling us was coming at 9 p.m. Then all of a sudden, you have people like Tucker Carlson who decided to be a warmonger and say on News Nation or Newsmax, I believe, as well as putting it out on Twitter, that tonight the president is going to announce that we are going to war with Venezuela. That's what he's announcing at 9 p.m. And that spread like wildfire. It probably helped the ratings to some degree because then people are like, oh, my goodness, the president's going to announce we're taking military action against Venezuela. But it wasn't true. There wasn't even a mention of that. Right. But in reality, we talked with Secretary Mike Pompeo last week about when they seized that oil vessel. And these are ships that are already sanctioned. If you're going to do sanctions with no enforcement of those sanctions, if they are flying in the face of your sanctions and
they just think it's a joke.
What's the point? So this is something that should have been done probably under the Biden administration when this vessel was listed as a sanctioned vessel.
Right.
So we have these things that are going on. It doesn't necessarily mean that the war drums are beating. It means that the administration is actually putting their money where their mouth is and saying, if we're going to sanction these vessels, we're going to seize them. We're going to put a blockade on oil that the Iranians, the Chinese, and the Venezuelans all use this kind of ghost fleet, they say, to transport their oil to get around sanctions. We're going to put a stop to that. It's in our own backyard. This is national security. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see airstrikes on the presidential palace in Caracas, Venezuela. But, Jordan, I do think that we should play this because this is something Logan and I have talked about recently. You and I have talked about it as well, where the president, there is one caution that needs to happen here. This is the end of the first year. I think we should play bite 4 because one of the, if I were to critique some of the speech last night, would be
fair and honest.
It is still very heavy on Biden. And let's play this and then we can commentate because as we come to the end of this year, we believe that you at some point have to move on.
Midterm voters are not going to be voting on President Biden's record. This was the year that you can utilize to say, this is the mess I inherit. So now I've got to correct all of Biden's wrong. So I've been spending the entire year doing that. Now you're going to see the pluses of that to the people. And that's what will have to be delivered through the big, beautiful bill and other actions taken.
And let's go ahead and play bite 4.
Definitely.
This is from the president last night. This is just kind of a sampling of how he weaved in the previous administration and where we are now. Bite 4.
Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our Treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration, car prices rose 22% and in many states 30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%. Airfares rose 31%. Now, under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast.
So once again, he is showcasing economic numbers, data that helps his cause, but is still rooted very much in that contrast with Biden.
Yes.
That's okay. And I think it's fine for now.
For the first year, you're allowed to correct the wrongs that the reason why you were elected is that people did not want Biden or the Harris agenda to continue. They did not believe that was the right path. So you have to, and they believed that they were causing trouble and problems. So you have to correct the problems. And when you correct the problems, the correction is the first part, and then the benefit of the correction is the second part. And the American people, if those numbers stay low on inflation, if mortgage interest rates come down, it can balance out some of that Obamacare subsidies during COVID that are not going to be extended. It does not look like that'd be voted down. They're not even having a vote on that in the House, and because they could not agree on even having a vote that likely would have failed, but couldn't even get there. But if mortgage rates come down And you're talking about kind of the people, not at the lowest end, who are not going to be paying the biggest increases. For them, I mean, it can be $25 and $50 a month. I'm not saying that's nothing, but for full health care coverage, it's pretty good. And that happens over time. That's just normal. That is normal inflation when it comes to a program that's now been in place for over a decade. When you're looking at then what comes next for the American people and for the middle class, that's the key. And does the big, beautiful bill deliver? And so that's what the voters will be judging President Trump on, and the Republicans running for re-election trying to maintain control, which is historically very difficult, of the House and the Senate.